Final Destination 3, the novelization of the film by Christa Faust. Chapter 7. It was raining, a soft, steady patter streaking the dusty gray windows that served to break up the monotony of the long, locker-lined school hallway. It was the last day of school, and the building was nearly deserted. Only the occasional junior scurried past for a last-minute final. Wendy drifted through the halls as quiet and pale as a ghost. She had a gold-embossed envelope in her numb fingers. Inside would be her diploma. She hadn't even bothered to look at it. Wendy passed a colorful student-made memorial shrine to the victims of the crash, but refused to look at that either. She had seen it once before on her way to pick up her diploma. She didn't need to see it again. She didn't need all their eyes looking out at her, happy, cheerful eyes that never imagined they wouldn't make it to graduation. The shrine was a collection of photos, pasted to white poster board and surrounded by handwritten notes, flowers, and candles, all sitting on top of an old trophy case. Jason, who had been one of the most popular boys in the school because of his athletic prowess and outgoing personality, had the biggest picture. The flawless posed photo that would have been his yearbook picture in the center position. Wendy knew how strong and handsome and alive he looked in that picture. She didn't have to look again. His picture was surrounded by shots of the others who had died in the crash, Carrie among them, all smiling out from their cheesy yearbook photos as if nothing bad could ever happen to them. She continued down the hall until she reached her locker. She fumbled with the lock and yanked it open. A picture of Jason was taped to the inside of the door. This was not a stiff, posed shot like the one that had been chosen for the shrine. This was a laughing, candid photo that Wendy had taken herself. Jason was roughhousing with his dog Betsy, and the dog had managed to sneak her blocky tan head up through Jason's defending arms. She had plastered her sloppy pink tongue across his cheek right at the moment that the shutter clicked. Wendy didn't look at the photo. Tucking the gold-embossed envelope under her chin, she began pulling her belongings out of the locker. Books, sweaters, gym clothes, sneakers, notebooks, her pencil box, and gathering them up in her arms. She stepped back and almost closed the door, then, still without looking at it, she pulled the picture of Jason off the door and put it face down on top of the pile. She hip-checked the locker door closed, then started back down the hall. Wendy passed the memorial shrine again, but then slowed, awash with a sudden chilly dread. She stopped, hesitant and conflicted, then looked up at the shrine. Jason smiled down from his oversized picture. Wendy cursed herself and clenched her teeth. She could feel the sadness beneath her frozen shell scrabbing to get out. The glass-encased candle at the center of the shrine was flickering as if a mischievous wind were toying with it, even though all the others burned straight and high. She frowned at it, and it blew out, a gray curl of smoke rising up from it, inexplicably sinister, like a cobra rising from a basket. Unnerved and confused, Wendy backed away from the shrine. She turned, crossed to a trash can, and dumped all the stuff from her locker into it. Jason's picture fluttered to the bottom after the rest. She had to force herself not to snatch it out again. This was closure. This was the end of a chapter in her life. She didn't need to carry any of her old life with her when she moved on. All she needed was the diploma in the gold-embossed envelope. Her ticket to Yale, to a new life. It was time for new beginnings. Time to bury the toxic tangle of painful emotions deep inside her, until they froze to death. She turned deliberately away from the trash can and started resolutely down the hall. Behind her she heard a voice. "Wendy!" It was Kevin. She recognized his voice, but she didn't want to talk to him right now. She didn't want to talk to anybody. She sighed as she heard his footsteps following her. She pushed through the double doors at the end of the hallway and stepped out into the wet gray lunch quad. Raindrops rippled the puddles that grew in the cracks of the concrete. Under the shelter of the small covered area by the water fountains, a group of students sat around one of the orange cement tables and signed each other's yearbooks. Wendy saw them and stilled herself. They were the survivors, the ones that had gotten off the roller coaster before the crash. She would have to walk past them to get to the parking lot, and she hoped none of them would call her over. Though divided by their membership to different cliques and by their varying social status, the crash and its aftermath had drawn the survivors together. This was partly due to the typical uneasy camaraderie shared by those who had survived a common tragedy. Partly it was because the other students had become shy about talking to them and had begun to shun them. Wendy knew this wasn't because of a lack of sympathy on the student body's part, but rather because of an excess of sympathy that made them excruciatingly uncomfortable. It was hard to know what to say. At what point was it appropriate to stop saying how sorry you were and to start joking again? How did you keep the superstitious fear out of your eyes when you spoke to someone who had given death the slip? The students had solved this uncomfortable dilemma by not talking to the survivors at all, and consequently they had drawn together as a group. Strangely, Wendy's sister Julie had taken to hanging on the edges of the group. She was there now, sitting with her friends Perry and Amber. Wendy didn't join them because it was a group she didn't want to be a part of. She didn't want to talk about the crash. She didn't want to relive it. She didn't want to try to answer the questions everyone asked about how she knew the crash was going to happen, and the darker, unasked questions that burned in their eyes. She didn't need to talk. She was just here to clean out her locker and pick up her diploma. Julie looked up from paging listlessly through the yearbook as her sister passed. Wendy frowned. Why was Julie hanging around with the survivors? It was almost like she was there as a weird sort of stand-in for Wendy. "What is she doing here?" Wendy overheard her sister ask no one in particular. "Wendy said she'd never come back to this place. I told her I'd pick up her diploma for her." Ian McKinley, who sat near Julie and Aaron, looked up from writing his first name above the gold leaf raised letters of McKinley Senior High on the yearbook cover. He shrugged and looked back down at his work. "I hate my stupid name," he said, crossing out the word McKinley on the cover of the book and writing Equinox instead. "As soon as I turn 18, I'm changing it to Ian Equinox." "Equinox?" Lewis said. "Dude, that's totally queer." "Won't your family cut you out of the will if you do that?" Aaron asked. "The McKinleys have owned this useless burg lock, stock, and barrel for 300 years. You may be a black sheep, but you're still their only heir." Ian made a disgusted face. "What do you care?" he said. "Fuck 'em and fuck their money. They don't own me. They hold all that money over me like it's the most important thing on earth, but do they ever give me a cent? Do they send me to a decent school? No. I'm stuck here with the peasants at McKinley High, driving a shitty car and working a shitty job for minimum shitty wage just to get by, to build character, as my old man likes to say." He began drawing an old World War II-style bomb dropping out of the sky toward the gold-printed line drawing of the school on the cover of the yearbook. "You better watch it with that kind of shit," Aaron said, frowning at the drawing. "If the school Gestapo sees that, they'll claim it's a bomb threat and make you disappear." Ian shook his head wearily and transformed the cartoon bomb into a fat hot dog on a bun with the caption, "Just eat it." "No sense of humor in this happy little post-Columbine world we live in," he said. Across the table, Lewis, in his usual black and silver sports gear, was drawing as well. He hunched over his graduation cap, a look of intense concentration on his face, as he used a silver gel pen to painstakingly draw the Oakland Raiders' helmeted skull and crossed swords logo on the mortarboard. Next to him, Ashley and Ashlyn were both writing in the same yearbook using black Sharpies and putting hearts over every I in their words. Frank Cheek slid in beside Ashley and pushed her open yearbook over to her, smirking. "Here you go," he said. "I drew a picture, too." Ashley glanced blankly at the open page and did a double take. Her jaw dropped. "Oh," she said, grabbing the book and scrubbing out the offending words and pictures with her Sharpie. "You are so sick. I have to show this to my mother, you know." Frank's eyes lit up. "I've seen your mom," he said. "She's a total MILF." "What in the world are you talking about?" Ashlyn asked. "You know," Frank replied. MILF. Mom, I'd like to... Ashley cut him off, face twisted with disgust. "Oh, gross, God! Get away from us!" Julie watched as Mr. Smith, the 11th grade social studies teacher and staff advisor to the yearbook committee, hurried out after Wendy. Hunching in the light rain, he called after her. Wendy?" Wendy turned, reluctant to stop. Mr. Smith caught up with her, puffing and red from the effort of pushing his chubby short legs to catch her. He looked more than a little uncomfortable talking to her, like everyone was these days. "Hi, Wendy," he said. "I'm sorry to bring this up. I know things have been, well, difficult lately, and I don't fault you for forgetting things, but, would it be possible to return the yearbook camera today?" Wendy nodded and turned back to continue toward the parking lot. "It's possible," she replied. She could tell that Mr. Smith was irritated by her non-committal answer, but was reluctant to scold her because of what had happened. Did everyone on Earth think she was some poor, fragile little victim who needed handling with kid gloves, or she would wig out and start predicting more death? Behind them, Kevin Fisher came out of the school. Wendy then saw him scanning the quad, and her heart sank when he spotted her. He started trotting after her. Great, she thought, now what? Mr. Smith frowned, not pleased, but still trying to put his displeasure in the safest, most non-threatening terms. "Wendy, listen," he said. "I'm not trying to—" "I'm sorry, Mr. Smith," Wendy cut in. "I'll have Julie bring it back in the next day or two, okay?" "Thank you, Wendy," Mr. Smith replied, sounding as if he had somehow dodged a bullet. "Good luck at Yale." Wendy didn't answer. Mr. Smith could not seem to get away from her fast enough. She sighed and continued on toward the parking lot. She passed only a few feet from the table where Julie and the crash survivors were sitting, but she didn't look their way. She didn't get 5 steps before Kevin finally caught up to her. "Wendy," he said, sounding slightly hurt, "I was calling you." She didn't slow down. "I know," she said. "I heard you." He faltered. "I want to talk to you." She shook her head. "I gotta get back home," she said. "I just came to pick up my diploma." She held up the gold-embossed envelope like it was some kind of protective shield. "So you're not going to graduation tonight?" Kevin asked. She shook her head, a terse, dismissive motion. "No." Kevin reached out and took her arm, turning her around to face him. Wendy clenched her teeth in fists. Couldn't he take a hint? She glared at him, ready to give him a piece of her mind. But the look in his eyes made her pause. He had a serious side to him that she had never seen before. The goofy jock clown he had been before the crash was submerged and buried. There was stony grief and a new kind of maturity in his wide, solemn face. He had seen bad things, and it had changed him, made an adult out of him in one terrible night. She still didn't want to talk to him. She knew all about it, how terrible it had been. He couldn't tell her anything she didn't already know about growing up too fast. "You're not the only one in a fucked up place, Wendy," he said. "We're all devastated. It might be good to be with some people who are going through the same bad shit." "At graduation?" Wendy interrupted. What could feel good about sitting around in ugly gowns and goofy hats listening to solemn bullshit speeches about how a part of our lives are over and it's time to turn the page? I had enough of that at the funerals. I've already turned the page. I'm already gone. You're looking at a ghost. The kids at the covered table looked up, listening and curious. "Fine," Kevin said. "So don't go and do it for yourself. Do it for Jason and Carrie. It's their graduation too." "Do what for them?" Wendy asked, impatient. "It's not like they're going to be pissed if I don't go. If you die and there's nothing, then they're just dead and they don't know either way. If they're in heaven with Lincoln and Gandhi and John fucking Lennon, you think they're going to care about our stupid little high school graduation?" Kevin looked offended at her lack of sentiment. "Well," he said, "it wouldn't hurt to honor them, you know." "And I already honored them at their funerals, and everybody else's funerals. I've done all the honoring and remembering I'm going to do. I'm done. I'm alive. That's all I care about. Once I pull out of that parking lot, I'm so out of McKinley it isn't even funny. Without Jason, what else is there here for me?" Wendy saw Julie look away, hurt. Wendy didn't mean to cut her sister and her parents off along with all the rest of the town. She just couldn't help it. It was the only way she knew to stay sane, to keep everyone and everything at arm's length. Kevin frowned too. He tapped the center of his broad chest with one hand. "I'm here," he said. "I made a promise to Jay that I would take care of you. I don't back out on promises." Wendy rolled her eyes. "Come on," she said. "You made a promise to take care of me on the ride. For 3 minutes. You weren't making a promise for a lifetime." Kevin looked away, embarrassed. "That's not the point," he said. "I owe it to Jay. I don't want to fuck up again and not help you when I should have." Wendy sighed. "Kevin," she said, "trust me, I'm fine. You don't have to do this. Listen." She paused, uncomfortable. "I don't mean to be cold, but the truth is that it wasn't for you being Jay's best friend and me being his girlfriend. You and me wouldn't really have hung out. We don't even like each other." Kevin's brow scrunched up. For a second he looked almost crushed, but then he laughed and shrugged it off. "Yeah," he said, "I guess you're right." Wendy nodded, but she couldn't see that he didn't mean it, that he really did seem to care for her in his own strange way. She also saw how deeply Jason's death had hurt him, almost more so than Carrie's. They had been best friends since they were little kids. "Look," she said, "I appreciate the gesture, Kevin, really I do, but I'm telling you, I'll be fine. I've moved on, and I suggest you do the same." She turned and started for the parking lot again. Kevin sighed and stared after her. From the knot of students at the covered table, Julie called out to Wendy. "That was pretty harsh there, Wendy," she said. "Why are you acting like you're blowing him off when the only reason you came down here is because you were looking for someone to talk to? Now Kevin wants to talk, and you just want to blow him off?" Wendy turned angry. She held up her envelope. "I just came to get my diploma," she said. "That's all." The survivors looked at her, wary but respectful. She had saved their lives after all, but it was still really weird and creepy. "Uh-huh," said Julie, "and yesterday you asked me to pick it up so you wouldn't have to, and I said I would, and your stuff. Now you're here when you knew a bunch of us would be. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out." Wendy froze. She flushed, feeling everyone's eyes on her. She hadn't thought of it that way. She wasn't really sure why she had decided to come down, instead of waiting for her sister to bring her stuff and her diploma home. There was something about not wanting to bring all that stuff, especially that last photo of Jason, into the house. But maybe it had been a lame excuse. Maybe she really did want to talk. "So, why are you chickening out now that you've come all the way down here?" asked Julie, unwilling to back down. "Are you afraid to deal?" "Can you blame her?" asked Frank Cheek, with what, for him, sounded almost like real concern and sympathy. "I mean, the only answer for what happened to her has got to be some fucked up demonic shit." Wendy tensed, her fist clenching as the others erupted in laughter and protest. Kevin looked like he wanted to come to Wendy's defense and kill them all, but he said nothing. "Shut up, freak," Ashlyn said, shoving Frank. "Yeah, loser," said Ashley. "You know, you're like not even supposed to be on campus," Ashlyn said. "I'm part of this too," Frank said. "Whatever," Ashley said. Ashley leaned into Ashlyn, and the two of them began whispering excitedly. "What happened to Wendy was purely psychological," Erin said, looking up from her yearbook. Ian nodded. "Exactly," he replied. "It's got absolutely nothing to do with the paranormal or occult practices of any kind." Lewis laughed and shook his head. "That's pretty funny coming from a couple devil worshippers," he said. "It's all black and white with you sheep," Ian sneered. "Satanism is nothing but dyslexic Christianity. We are not devil worshippers, we are atheist rationalists who practice Wiccan rituals for the clarity of mind and purpose the ceremonies bring." "Whatever," Lewis said. "You guys are messing with stuff that ain't right. That's a fact. For all we know, your evil, idol worship and rituals are what caused the accident." "Fuck you, jock for Jesus," Ian said. "We don't need that kind of superstitious bullshit right now." "Maybe he's right," Frank said. "Oh, great," Erin said. "What? Do you guys want to burn us at the stake now? Don't you see how crazy this all is?" "Hey, listen," said Kevin, trying to talk over the clamor. "There's something I think you all should hear. I went online and came across a story about a situation a lot like ours that we all should know about." No one listened to him. They were too busy shouting at Erin and Ian, who were too busy shouting back. Can I say something? Wendy asked. Nobody was listening to her either. Her jaw clenched. She was seriously beginning to regret coming into school at all. Kevin stepped toward her. Before he could reach her, Ashlyn and Ashley stood up and cut him off. Wendy? Ashley said. We wanted to ask you, Ashlyn continued. After this, we're going to get ready for graduation tonight at the tanning salon, you know, because we want to look our best and stuff. And we just wanted you to know, said Ashley, that we are, so totally fine if you want to go with us and just, hang out and talk about, stuff. So anyway, finished Ashlyn, handing Wendy a piece of paper. Here's my cell number. We're going to be there around 5-ish. Wendy nodded absently. She hadn't really heard them at all, and she crumpled the number in her fist as she listened to the others. They seemed to have dropped the Satanism argument, and were now discussing her as if she wasn't standing right there. Can I say something? She repeated. No one was listening. It's called parietal, Ian said, sounding like a snooty professor. A vague stimulus being perceived as something clear and distinct. Kevin turned, sucked into the conversation again. I don't see what, he began. Lewis cut him off. Vague, he said. Before the ride, the bitch was saying the roller coaster would crash, and it did. She said the hydraulics would go, and they did. She said the track would break, and it did. How is that shit vague? Look, Frank said, I'm not saying she meant to do it. I'm not saying that she's demonic or anything, but maybe she... Aaron laughed. Please, she said, tell me he's not about to say that she was possessed. Frank's face fell embarrassed, as if that was exactly what he was going to say. He shrugged. Yeah, well, whatever, he said. It was out of her control is all I'm saying. Wendy twitched when Frank said the word control. Jason had been talking about her control issues right before they had gotten on the ride. He had said that she didn't want to ride the roller coaster because she had a fear of losing control, and now Frank was saying that she seemed to be out of control of her own mind. Had something else invaded her mind? Had something outside herself given her the warning? Had something forced her to see those things to try to get everybody off the coaster? She had certainly never felt anything like it before. She had never had premonitions or any unexplainable feelings of wrongness before. She was a normal girl with a normal brain, wasn't she? Suddenly, she couldn't stand to be in the presence of the others. She turned and started for the parking lot again. The survivors were bringing up all the questions and worries she had successfully tramped down and locked away behind her armor of ice. Maybe Julie was right. Maybe she had come to talk it out. But now that she was faced with the reality of the situation, it was too much. She was overwhelmed. She had to bail. She reached in her pocket, fishing for her keys as she approached her Ford Ranger. Footsteps were coming up behind her. She didn't look around. Wendy! It was Kevin. She opened the door of the truck and got in. Her hand trembled as she stuck the key into the ignition. She reached out to pull the door closed, but Kevin's hand stopped it and held it open. She flushed, angry, and turned to look at him, about to tell him to get away from her. He looked into her eyes, intense. Wendy, listen to me, he said. You are not alone. Wendy slumped back in her seat, too weary to fight him. She turned the key and started the engine. Kevin, I know you're trying to be nice, and I appreciate everybody trying to help. I totally do, but... No, he said, cutting her off. Listen to me. I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about other people who had the same experience you had. She frowned. What are you talking about? Now he seemed hesitant, as if embarrassed by what he wanted to say. He looked down and hunched his shoulders, hands stuffed deep in his pockets. It's happened before. What's happened before? Wendy asked. Kevin raked nervous fingers through his hair and looked back over his shoulder at the arguing survivors. Well, he looked down at his sneakers. I went online, looking for an explanation for what happened to you, because it freaked me out and I just couldn't get it out of my head. It freaked you out? Wendy said dryly. Kevin continued as if she hadn't spoken. I found out about this high school French class in New York that was taking a plane trip to Paris 6 years ago, he said. When they were getting on the plane, this one kid had a vision that the plane was going to blow up, okay? Exactly the same sort of thing that happened to you the night of the roller coaster crash. He freaked out just like you. And 7 people were taken off the plane just like us. Wendy listened, staring blankly at the steering wheel. On takeoff, Kevin said, Flight 180 blew up. Wendy bit her lip. She wasn't sure she wanted to hear this after all. Okay, that's freaky and all, Kevin, she said. But what does it matter if somebody else saw some big accident was going to happen? Knowing this isn't going to change anything. I can't go back and stop the crash, can I? I'm not done, Kevin said. There's more. Okay, fine, sighed Wendy. I guess I'm not getting out of here until you finish. Kevin leaned in, lowering his voice. This is the freaky part, he said. Over the next few months, everyone who got off that plane and escaped the crash died in weird accidents. And not just that. They died in the exact order they would have if they had stayed on the plane. And there was another situation a few years later. Wendy's heart lurched. She had almost been taken in. Kevin seemed so serious. What was she thinking? Why would she imagine he had changed? Fuck you, Kevin, she said, putting the truck in gear. Always gotta be the joker. Well, it's not funny. She reached out and slammed the door shut. Kevin jumped back as Wendy peeled the car backwards out of its space, then jammed it into drive and roared out of the lot. Kevin stared after her, a look of worry and fear on his face. Behind him, lightning crashed, and the light rain became a torrential downpour. Kevin hunched his shoulders and ran for the shelter table. Okay, Slashaholics, this has been Chapter 7 of Final Destination 3, the novelization by Christa Faust. Not a lot going on in tonight's story, but we did get to see where all the survivors' mindsets at. The ones dealing with survivor's guilt. It was interesting to get into Wendy's head a bit here when she really didn't need to go there. She'd already given her sister the job of picking her stuff up. Well, you hear that? I have to stop recording so many times, cars driving by. But yeah, she'd already planned on sending her sister in, but then she went herself anyway. So it's like she wanted to be a part of this group and talk, but she's just not there yet. But I thought it was interesting that she hasn't put 2 and 2 together yet. Spoiler alert, if you have not seen this movie or read the book, I'm about to give away kind of a spoiler here, and I don't want to ruin it for you. So skip ahead a little bit in the outro, or yeah, just giving you fair warning. 1, 2, 3. I think it's kind of strange that she hasn't put 2 and 2 together yet about why her sister has been showing up to these meetings. I'm sure, that revelation's coming soon, but it was interesting to get into her head and, actually know what she's thinking. And she's like, what is my sister doing here? And if she really believed her sister was just filling in for her, I don't see why she's being as cold to her sister as she's being. I understand why she's being kind of cold to Kevin, because that happens a lot with high school relationships. People will hang out with their boyfriend or girlfriend's friends, but not really be friends with them. And especially after something like this, I can see her freaking out. So that makes sense. I think she's being a little extreme with Kevin whenever he came and told her about the stuff he found out. I don't think it came off like he was joking, so I think it's more of her just being afraid of him telling the truth, and she just has to believe it's a joke, because if he's telling the truth, then things get even scarier than they already are. But I did enjoy the character development we got. We got introduced more to each of the survivors. The whole Ashley and Ashlyn thing, inviting her to go tanning with them. Kind of a foreshadow there. Obviously, something's going down with that. Spoiler alert. Don't want to give it away, but yeah, there's some importance to that little conversation there. But yeah, Frank is showing up for these things. I kind of feel like he don't care about surviving. He's just wanting to be around Ashley and Ashlyn. How is this guy not in jail yet? It's like, come on, this was like early 2000s, yeah, all they had to do is pick up the phone, and that guy would have been hauled away. Unless they're enjoying the attention a little more than they're putting on. So yeah, things are setting up for this story to really start unraveling. I do enjoy that Christa Faust can write a chapter with like no action whatsoever, and it still be a very intriguing chapter. I was really drawn into all this character development and character conversation, and I look forward to the rest of the book, and I hope you are too. I'll be back very soon with more of Final Destination 3. Until then, this has been your friendly neighborhood 80 slasher librarian saying, thanks for listening. In the words of Bloodworth, I'll see you soon.
But remember, the risk of cheating the plan, of disrespecting the design, could incite a fury that could terrorize even the Grim Reaper. And you don't even want to fuck with that, man.